as it's officially 9:01. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for being here. We are happy that you've joined us on this Tuesday morning. We've got a great speaker today, and one that we are excited not only about the speaker, but also about the topic. So you'll get a preview of that in just a minute. We have a little bit of business to start with before we get to our speakers. So I'm going to ask Marianne to give us a quick membership report, please.
We have 83 members at this point. We have 13 new members. Our last member joined last week. We're so excited to have all of our new members participate and find us, and we are excited to work with them.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Alan, will you please give us a quick treasurer's report?
Sure, absolutely. So for the month ending in March, we had a really strong first quarter, so very excited about that. Thank you all for getting your membership dues paid and paid on time and early. We were able to, those dues help us fund our projects and events throughout the entire year and scholarships and things that we offer. So we definitely do appreciate that. It's an investment straight back into HR professionals. And so for the end of the first quarter, we brought in about just a little under $15,000 in revenue. And from that, including our conference, we had expenses of around $6,100. And so we're operating at a net gain for the year of about $8,800. And again, for the majority of that to be spent throughout the year on different projects and things that we have going on. Very successful conference with our sponsorships being able to cover just about the entire expense of that conference. So again, very strong first quarter.
Thank you, Alan. We are so thankful for our sponsors to put on such a big event and such a educational event for people that are members and non-members. And just because I want to make sure that you all know how much we appreciate you participating in our membership drive. We always kick off the year with that. And that really does fund the majority of the year's activities. So thank you all. We're happy to have you as members and happy to provide you with great content like what we have today. Before we dive into that, before I pass it over to Melissa, I do want to make sure and let you know that these are CE credits for both HRCI and SHRM. And we are going to be posting those in the chat. You may have seen the codes also before we got started in our morning slideshow, before the meeting got started. But just know to look for those certification credits because we want to make sure that you all have that information for the certifications that you have. Okay. Do any other of our board members have any announcements that need to be made?
Catherine, this is Deb. I just want to remind everyone that we have a wonderful scholarship opportunity coming up. We're awarding two $2,000 scholarships, and believe it or not, that May 15 deadline is quickly approaching. So if you know of anyone that has at least sophomore level of credits that's interested in applying, please spread the word in the next week or so, because that May 15th deadline will be here before we know it. So, and we'll be having a scholarship committee meeting right around that time as well.
Thank you, Deb. We'll be happy to spread that word, and thank you for your work on getting that scholarship program back running. All right, with that, I am going to pass it over to Melissa to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Catherine. Good morning, everyone. I am super excited to announce today's speaker and introduce her. If you do not know Jennie Morehead, you are really missing out, and you need to remedy that as quickly as possible. Jennie is a native of Paducah and grew up kind of in the construction industry and has a background in occupational safety and health. She spent the first 35 years of her career caring for people through safety compliance, healthcare, and she has in various industries such as higher education and faith-based organizations. She's a life coach, and she now speaks on national and regional platforms on mental health and wellness, teaching people how to care for each other and run successful businesses. And today she has graciously agreed to speak to us on a topic which she has titled, and I love this, Join Us for Peaceful Grounds, Brewing Mental Health and Wellness for HR Directors. Because if you've worked in HR for any length of time, you need some mental health and wellness. And with that, I will turn it over to Jennie.
Well, bless your heart. Well, first off, I'm always the one that has to ask, can you see my screen? Because that's typically, I'm always worried that somebody's not going to see it. So if y'all can see that, that's great. So first off, thank you so much. I was just telling everybody when they came on, there's a few groups that I talk to that I'm always a little worried if I'm going to do the right thing or say the right thing. And my HR group, you guys have always been, I just love it. I love all the people in this group because I learn so much every time I'm around you all. And so today, nothing would please me more than for us to get started in this and then we get completely off topic, because slides, I think, are just a suggestion. And so we're going to talk today about peaceful grounds, because I don't know about you all, but in my career now in the mental health and wellness field, I want peaceful grounds. It doesn't mean we're always perfect and everybody's always happy, but in the HR division, I know that you all want peaceful grounds as well. So, and when I was trying to figure out a topic, I was actually looking at my coffee cup when I was coming up with it. And I'm like, coffee makes me happy. And so that's what we're going to talk about today a little bit. So there I am with my hair done. Here I am with my hair, up so you can see both ways. I love what I do. I've been in the health and wellness business now since 2012. But prior to that in construction, what I found is all humans, no matter where you're from, what you do, your background, is wellness is always important, whether it's physical or mental. And we dealt with so many people that had mental health issues going on that weren't diagnosable. They were people that had things going on. Life happens, curveballs happen, and it was affecting their safety. It was affecting how they did the job. And then moving over into this field is everybody's the same. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm hoping that you all will take away some nuggets of information that is good for you, but it's also good for the employees and the teams that you are in charge of. So with that being said, why HR and mental health? What in the world do these two things have in common? And when I started thinking about it, one of the things I realized was
I didn't think so.
I hear somebody. One of the
Hey
things.
guys, if you can make sure that your mics are muted during the presentation, thank you. Unless you have a question.
Oh yeah. But what does HR and mental health have in common? And so here's what I came up with was that both of you all are misunderstood. People misunderstand HR all the time. I hear people say, oh, well, all they do is benefits, or all they do is payroll, or they just push paper, or they hire and fire people. And what I have found is that in HR, you all are counselors. You are the go-between. You are the person who talks people out of doing things that they shouldn't do. You're you're just the person who takes care of everybody and everything. And one of the things about mental health and HR directors is you're not really appreciated until people experience firsthand the impact that you have. And so if somebody is going along and hasn't had a lot of curveballs in their life, and then something happens, they go, oh my gosh, maybe I should tend to my mental health better. Or in HR, nobody thinks about HR too much until something goes wrong, or if they've got something to complain about and they show up at your door. And when companies, my first job out of college was with Ralston Purina. And one of the things that happened was there was no HR on site at the plant that we were at, because they were going to shut one plant down and bring it back up in another facility. And so they took all the HR out. And it took a very large, basically, mutiny on the production floor for an HR person to come in and say, let's deal some conflict resolution here. And all of a sudden, HR was the person wearing the cape, because they were taking care of making sure that the plant ran accordingly. But up until then, everybody was like, HR, we don't need them on site. And I will say that I can't imagine doing your all's job, because they would probably fire me. So why through the lens of coffee? Well, I can't imagine doing most anything without coffee, honestly. But through the lens of coffee for me was this: like HR and mental health, coffee is needed. The people who love it, it's needed. It's accomplished in many different ways. Some people love it black. Some people love it with lots of cream. I tend to like it with, I want a splash of coffee with vanilla creamer. But it sets a comforting atmosphere. And when those three things happen, more gets done. And I think the thing when I started doing mental health, I started in January of last year, getting to with the Emerald Foundation, was everybody had a misconception about mental health. They thought if I was coming in to talk to their company that we were all going to sit on the floor and we were all going to do yoga, and we were all going to talk long and hard about our feelings. And what's interesting is, if you've ever seen me in a yoga class, it's quite the comedic thing, because if I get in the floor, I'll be happy to do it, but you're going to have to get me out of the floor. And most people in all walks of life think that mental health is talking about long lost feelings. And while that is definitely part of it, it's the why. Why do I feel the way I do? And so I think it's important to understand those things along the way. So here's what we're going to brew up today. We're going to talk about what emotional labor is, what your physical environment has to do with mental health, both in your world and in the world of your company, self-care practices you can have at work, stress management, and work-life harmony. So those are the things I want to cover, because I think there's some actionable items that HR folks can have both for themselves and for their companies and their teams that can make a big difference very, very quickly, because not everything has to be a long, drawn-out program. So peaceful grounds. Everybody wants peaceful grounds. You want to foster an environment where you and your team can thrive, right? And thriving and being empowered doesn't always mean everybody's happy. I'm sure you all don't deal with everybody in your company being happy all the time. I'm sure not everybody comes to your office and says, hey, didn't want to tell you, but life is good, life is great, just wanted to come by and say hi and appreciate you. I wonder if that happens very often. Most of the time they wait till something's wrong before they come to see you. They're complaining or they don't like something. But I want you all to be able to thrive for yourself and professionally. And what I find most often with professionals is this: most people are not thriving. Most people are just surviving, and that is just no way to live. And I've been in that boat too. And so let's talk about emotions first. When it comes to coffee, everybody has an emotion about it. Coffee invokes very honest emotions. If you say, hey, do you like coffee? If you had asked me that question back in college, I would have said, I love the smell, but I don't like anything else about it. But other people will say, I love it, can't live without it. And then some people say, hate it, hate everything about it. But they have no problem being honest about their feelings about it. But I went around and I asked a whole bunch of people, and here's some of my favorite responses. The first conversation of the day is with my coffee pot. And that's one of the ladies in our office, and she's in charge every morning of brewing the coffee, because none of us do it correctly. And so she's in charge, and she takes care of it, keeps the pot running all day long, and we love her for it. It's what helps me get through the afternoon. That one actually comes from me. I don't need coffee in the morning, but what I need is about 2 o'clock. If I don't have some coffee in my life, I'm just spinning. I can't get anything done. It's what gets me through the rest of the day. Some people say, I love the smell, but hate the taste. My favorite, this came from one of my younger ones here in the office: no coffee, no talkie. That's just how she'll say it. She'll say, no coffee, no talkie, not yet. And then no one needs to experience me without coffee in my system. That actually is my husband, because he will tell you that until he gets a whole pot in him in the morning, conversation is not allowed at all. But what I find is people are very honest. And why can't we just be honest about that when it comes to mental health? Why? Why are people not willing to say, hey, I'm having a bad day? Because most people, if I asked all of you all in this room, if you didn't know me and I said, hey, how's your day? Most people would say what? Fine. What you doing? Nothing. Anything going on in your world? Nope. Life is good. And that's how we are conditioned. We're conditioned to do that. And it's universal, whether I go talk to kids, whether I go talk to teenagers, or whether I talk to adults. And getting people to understand that you don't have to be fine. Mental health doesn't mean that you're happy all the time. In fact, people who are happy all the time scare me, because I'm thinking, okay, what's going on in the world? But you can be mentally healthy and still have a bad day. But most people, especially those in executive, will fear of being perceived as weak or incapable. I have a lot of people that we do life coaching with that they think that they have to be at the top of their game, the head of everything, have the answer to everything. And if they express that they're having a day that's not so great, or that they don't know something, that we're going to perceive them as weak or incapable. And that's a lot of times that comes from how we were raised, or how we were brought up, as what success was measured by. And you'd be amazed at the number of people who feel that way, or they don't know how or where to ask for assistance. And I think probably harder than anything is making people understand how they access help. And sometimes accessing help is nothing more than finding a friend who understands you. There's a speaker that talks a lot. It usually takes between 7 and 9 minutes to make a difference in somebody's life if they are having a moment. It is one of those things where if I say to somebody, I'm not having a good day, do you have about 7 minutes for me? My good friends know that what I'm saying is, this isn't a normal day and I need to vent or I need your opinion. And understanding and explaining to people how and where to ask for assistance is important. Many of you all have EAP programs. Many of you all have benefits through your health insurance. But more than that is making sure everybody understands where people can access that help here locally. And sometimes people think that they're the only ones experiencing these life issues. If I could get you all to remember just one thing and that you could take back to your folks and to yourself, put it on a sticky note, stick it on your wall, is you are not alone. And you hear that a lot when people are talking about suicidal ideation. You are not alone. I hear it a lot when I'm talking to my veterans. You are not alone. But what happens is people think that they're the only person in the world that might be dealing with financial issues, or they're dealing with stressful situations with their children, or maybe they're experiencing empty nest syndrome, or whatever the case may be, and they think they're the only people. And there is a physical reason for that. When somebody experiences stress and cortisol and adrenaline drops in the system, literally your brain takes the narrow focus like this, and it makes you only make decisions based on what's best for you. It's why when somebody is in a meeting and they are making decisions that is just off the wall, and you're like, what are they doing? They're not thinking about the team. They're not thinking about the company. They're not thinking about the people around them. Consider the fact that it's possible they don't even realize they're doing it. They're only making decisions on a narrow scope because there are other things going on in their world, and their biology right now is swimming in cortisol and adrenaline. And they think they're the only people experiencing it, and they don't reach out for help. So with that being said, let's talk a bit about emotional labor. Emotional labor, we talk about people doing physical labor, but there's emotional labor that goes into things. And I think a lot of times people forget that. And sometimes they don't even know that that's a thing. It's the effort and the energy you have to manage your emotions at work. So it's me being happy when I'm not. I'm not happy on the inside, but I'm smiling on the outside, right? I've got to make sure that my work aligns with my organizational expectations, customer preferences, or professional norms. So it's not professional norm for me to walk into my office and start screaming and barking orders and things of that nature. If that is the norm that's allowed in an office, we've got much bigger things to work on. But the professional norm is for us to come in, to be put together, to figure out problems, to work things through. That's our professional norm, but that takes an emotional toll. And it's not that we don't want to do that, but think about your people. If you have people in customer service that are public facing all day long, their emotional labor that's being used all day long can be very, very taxing. And when they've had to be this way all day long, when they've had customers who maybe didn't really deserve this all day long, there is a great toll on their mental health if they don't know how to unpack that at the end of the day. And if they have to take that home, sometimes it can cause problems at home, which turns around and causes problems at work, and it causes problems at home, and it just spirals. So emotional labor, it's called surface acting. If I have somebody that walks into my office and they're very elevated, I just can't believe that this is going on. What is happening? And they just go on and on and on. And the whole time I'm listening, maybe I'm in the middle of writing a presentation, or maybe I'm in the middle of doing something, but I can see that this person has come in my door. They've asked me to listen. And so I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to be mindful of what they're talking about, and I'm going to listen. And employees are required to manage their emotions to meet your expectations, to resolve conflicts. And you in HR deal with that every single day. And this is usually what ends up happening. What you display versus what you're really feeling is usually two different things. So I always encourage people that when you know that your emotional labor is really off balance, you need to make sure and take care of yourself as well as your staff. fake versus fact. I can fake, I can have emotional energy to take care of people, but the fact of the matter is my job doesn't stop just because I had to help this person. My to-do list continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's your responsibility to make sure you have safe outlets for all your real emotions, because if you don't, what ends up happening is that you start experiencing sleep disturbances. You start experiencing cravings. People who start not honoring their emotions all the time will start experiencing where they crave sugar. And the reason they crave sugar is because they're triggering all the adrenaline and the cortisol in the body. And so when that happens, you're in fight or flight. Well, that means all these muscles are ready to move and do because it's a bear attacking them. No, it's not a bear attacking them. It's people coming in and out of their office, stirring you up. So you start craving sugar. And then when sugar goes up, sugar drops off. You just keep craving it. It just keeps going over and over. So you need trusted professionals in your field or life type coaches that you can unpack with. And trusted professionals in your field is really important. I used to do it a lot in the safety field, because when you have people that just continuously do the same thing over and over and you're thinking, we've only talked about this a gazillion times. Why do you still do this? It takes another professional who understands in order to give you perspective. Trusted friends. And a lot of times what people will do in the work world is they will assume that people they work with are trusted friends. And maybe they are. But a lot of times what ends up happening is when one person vents to another person in the office, it starts inter-office drama. Now, you all have probably never dealt with inter-office drama before. But if you have, you know what I'm talking about. And they start using that against each other. And so I always encourage my team, you need a trusted professional you can talk to, and you need a trusted friend outside of work that you can talk to as well, that will literally be honest with you. If it's you and you're acting out, they can say, not so much. Or they recognize what you are like so that they can hold a mirror up to your face and say, you're not being yourself right now. What's going on? So faking it till you make it equals burnout. And I can fake something for a long time if I need to, but it's not healthy. Faking till you make it is not a good thing. And so you would be amazed. I went to Graves County High School. It's probably 2 weeks ago now. And I got to talk to groups of kids in their senior year, and they were doing classes. And I think Miss Christie was there. And one of the things that happened is that these kids were talking about how they weren't enjoying the end of their senior year because they were having to be pushed into so many things. What are you going to do? Where are you going to go? What's your scholarships like? What is your long-term plan? And basically I was like, what is it you would really like to do? And most of the classes said they just want to enjoy what's left of their school time and worry about life as it comes. But they were felt pushed into making a career decision right now. And so I would tell them the emotional labor that they are experiencing is huge because they're trying to be all things to all people. HR professionals can't do it. Your employees can't do it. None of us can do it because you'll burn out. And that's not what we want. That's not the goal. So it's our responsibility to make sure our employees have a safe outlet. So let's think about this. If an employee's asked about the emotions at your job, do we actually listen? So my first job was with Ralston Purina. Our boss would come out. He was from up north, and there's nothing wrong with people from up north. My husband's family's from up north, and I love them a lot. They're very matter of fact. But he would go out and go, tell me what you think. And you would tell him and he'd go, okay. And he would turn around and leave. It was like up against a brick wall. He wanted to connect, but he wasn't listening. Or we would say, we think we ought to do something a little different. And he was only listening so he could defend what was going on. And so employees learned that it doesn't really matter what we think. It doesn't really matter how we feel at work because nobody's listening anyway. So think about your work environment. Do people that you all have that maybe you work for, maybe in your executive team, are they listening to defend what they're doing and really not listening? Or do they really care? Because if they want, and even sometimes people want to care, but they don't know how. Would employees even be honest if you tried? Is the environment that they're in punitive or supportive? And 99% of y'all already know the answer to this within your own workforce. So if you know that the environment is punitive in nature, if somebody actually expresses their opinion, and there are some companies that we've done work with that it is punitive in nature. They have to be on a production floor at a certain time. They cannot be off the production floor. They have to be focused on what they're doing and what they're feeling emotionally. The company doesn't care because we've got to be able to put out a product, and we don't have time for that. And so if they have a moment, the company just pulls them offline, puts someone else in their place because they are running production. And it's not that I think the company doesn't care about people. They're having to run production so fast that they don't have time for it. So I think in that case, it's a punitive place. Or is it supportive? I also work with companies where they ask their employees what they think, and then they listen, and they really listen. And those are the companies that are such a joy to be around, because watching what they do with their employees is such an amazing thing. So I put two things up here. If you have a punitive place of work, meaning they ask you what you want to, they ask you what you think, how you're feeling about your job, what's going on in the world, but in the end, they're not really listening, you can still make some changes. So for example, posters, newsletters, and safety meetings. I put those up there because it sounds like not a lot, but it is actually really huge. Most of the time in a punitive work environment, you can put nuggets of information out for people to see and they can still absorb it, but the company kind of sees it as we're doing what we can do, but that's all we're doing. And I put safety meetings up there because most companies have safety meetings with their employees, and you can slip those types of mental health things in there so that they understand they're not the only people who have things going on. There are EAP or programs that the company offers. You can teach where to find resources, if nothing else. A lot of the companies that I do work with, they'll say, I'll talk to HR and say, tell me what you want me to get across. And they'll say, here's the benefits we have in our package. Here's the employee assistance program that we have. And I'll say, okay, give me that information, because when I go talk to their folks, a lot of times what they'll say is, I don't know. I have no idea. Now, you've told them 1,000 times, I know you have, and they'll still not know. And so that way I can say, see this is part of what you do. This is part of what's available to you. Don't be afraid to use it. Engaging employees where they are informally. So in the environment in which I would work in, let's see, when I graduated from college, gosh, it's been right prior to God making dirt. So when I worked right prior to college, I used to go out on the production floor, and I just went from place to place to place to place and got to know people, not only to learn the process, but to learn the people. And a lot of times what will happen is you can elevate the mental health and wellness of your team and of yourself and ultimately the company by going out and meeting people where they are. And it doesn't have to be this long, drawn out conversation. It might just be, hey, how is your day? And then sit still. And when they say fine, say, really? Is it fine? And I guarantee you, if you just wait, silent, nobody likes silence at all. And they'll say, yeah, it's fine. You go, okay. And you look at them and they'll go, well, actually, and you will learn so many things about what's going on in the tone of your company just by going to where they are. So there's a lot of places that I go, where I go out to their job sites. I go out to their workshops. I go out, I do a lot of work with some first responders. When I'm talking to a lot of them, I'm talking in their firehouse. I'm talking to them sitting in their cruiser. And when they are in their environment, they're in their comfortable spot. And then all of a sudden I get to talk to them and they will open up. If you have an open atmosphere, an open place of that's really into it, all those things, plus have some classes, have people come in and take classes or offer classes to them on mental health and wellness. It doesn't take an hour-long class. Most people don't want to sit for an hour and listen to something, but you can talk about things like why stress makes you feel the way you do, why cortisol and adrenaline is a bad thing and you can get addicted to it. Discussing mental health in every meeting, having committees. Here where I work in my team and my staff, I require that everybody tell me around the room the one good thing and the one thing that they're struggling with during the week. Now they don't have to go into super personal things, but what we will find is that when people know that other people care about what's going on, they're more likely to open up to each other. And because of that, they're better employees simply because we've got an area where people are safe to say what they think. And that's an important thing. Committees. If you have an open environment, I can't stress enough, mental health and wellness committees are an amazing committee because they have the ear of the rest of the employees more so than you will. And a lot of times they can find out problems long before it hits your desk. And mental health campaigns every month or quarter. It sounds like a lot, but there's a lot of things out there you can do. Just keeping it in front of people. And the cool thing is that mental health and wellness is nobody shies away as much as they used to. Now, when you say, hey, what do you do? I work in mental health. People don't go, and run away. They actually go, really? And you open up the conversation. So physical environment. All right. So what does your physical environment say about you? Okay. And what's interesting is that you have there's one of two schools of thought. If you look down at your desk, and you can't see mine, so but there's two schools of thought. You're either a pile person or you are a minimal person. And everybody falls in there. And there's psychology behind both. And that's really a fun class. But pile people tend to be very visual. Most of the time, people who are pile people also keep written calendars because they have to physically see what they're working on. It's a visual reminder of what's happening. They physically write things in a calendar. People who are minimalistic tend to be the ones that their desk is completely clear, and sometimes you even wonder if they're in their office ever. And some companies require that, but what I love is if the company requires it, I always like to look like down and under their desk to see whether they're pile people or minimalistic. You can tell real quick. But your physical environment, is it the same at work as it is at home? And a lot of times people can keep it together at work because remember that emotional spin that we've got going on, they can get it together at work. But when they get home, they relax and their environment at home is a whole lot different. And if you know that your work environment, physical environment, and your home physical environment is completely different, ask yourself why. Why is that? Is it that why is that? What is going on? And a lot of times you will find that when there's a big difference between home and work, there is not work-life balance or there's not work-life harmony. We'll talk about that in a second. What does the physical work environment say about your organization? So coffee houses, I love going to them. I just love going in and looking at the breads and smelling the coffee, and there's usually music playing. I could sit in there for hours and do my work because it just makes me feel good. But your physical environment at work, sometimes clutter accumulates and it can even breed disrespect in an organization. If a company, you walk in the door and there's just piles and racks of paperwork that you know has been sitting there for years because the dust is this thick on it. Why? Why is that? And when people start seeing mess, mess begets mess. Piles beget piles, and people start disrespecting the space. And when they disrespect the space, they start disrespecting each other. They leave messes. They leave disorganization. They have disorganized meetings. They can't keep things focused. They're tense. They're not relaxed. So physical environment is really important in your spaces. And not that you can walk in, and if you walk into your office and it's like that, and you say, well, Jennie said that we have to clean everything up, I'm leaving because I really don't want somebody to call me and hate me. But I will tell you that when you start to organize, it begins to get a momentum going. So respecting shared spaces. This is a before and after where we went into a company and they said, we just can't understand why people can't get anything done. We don't understand why we just can't. So the one on the left, the before, most people that are pile people are like, what? I don't get it. What? I don't understand. I like the cat cup there. That's pretty cool. They don't get it. But what happens is what that space says is, we're disorganized and we have no idea what's going on. And if a customer sees that, or somebody who's a minimalist sees that, that causes a lot of stress and anxiety. And for people who have desks that looks like that, they don't realize it, but it's also causing low-lying stress. Now, can you clean it all up in a day? No, but you can take it a little at a time. But it's important to understand that even the desk on the right still has stuff there, but at least it's more organized so you can find things. Anybody else have the kitchen argument at their place? There's a kitchen argument in my office a lot. And we stopped it because we had, and this is not a picture of ours on the left, but I will tell you that our microwave was so bad that I took it and I put it in the dumpster. I took our coffee pot and I put it in the dumpster. And we had paper dishes. We just cleaned out the whole kitchen because I was like, I'm over it. And then everybody's like, well, how can I do my lunch? And I'm like, why would you want to heat your lunch up? And what that was, there was a science project in there. And so we literally had the employees sit down and decide what they needed in the kitchen. What was it that you needed? One of the things they wanted was a brand new refrigerator. Okay, well, that's fine and well and good, except the one they had food this deep in the bottom of it where nobody wanted to clean it up because they didn't make the mess. And so we said, we are in the mental health field. We need to take care of ourselves, our environment, just like we take care of others. And so we got a new refrigerator with the promise that every Friday it got cleaned out or we moved the refrigerator out. And our chief operating officer made it very clear that he had no problem moving it out because he really wanted it at his house anyway, because his wife picked it out and she thought it was going to his house and it really wasn't. Then all of a sudden they're like, well, we need a microwave. And we're like, okay, we'll bring a microwave back. And slowly but surely everything came back. And before long, everybody started respecting the space. And all of a sudden, lunchtimes got more fun. Lunchtimes became more interactive. And it wasn't just this, let's just pitch stuff everywhere, playing, dish Tetris and things like that. And we haven't had a problem since. But it was an eye-opener when they all came in and everything was gone. Physical environment. So biophilic design, fancy word for put plants everywhere. They don't have to be real. If you can look behind me and mine, I don't know if you can see, but you can see all these plants across here. Now I have an advantage. My daughter's an ag major. And so if she can grow it, if she can propagate it, she's all over it. And she loves sticking stuff in my window. I wish I could tell you it's because I'm that good. I'm really not. But what's interesting is I love looking at studies, and there are studies that talk about having plants and greenery around people make people calmer. It brings out the dopamine and the oxytocin, the good, the happy things that bring that adrenaline cortisol down. Just having fake plants is amazing. And if you can get real plants to grow, or I'll send my daughter to your spot and she can put stuff out for you. But they really make a difference. And there's studies for it that's actually research-based. It's pretty amazing. Comfortable space and ergonomics. Now, this is not a big push for everybody to go out and buy a $700 ergonomic chair for everybody. Nobody can afford to do that. But on my master's, I went with ergonomics, was one of the classes we took, and it was amazing. And it talks about how high things should be. There wasn't even such a thing as a raisable desk at the time. But the ergonomics of a person's space will dictate how well they are as an employee. If you buy 25 chairs from Sam's, and I'm not knocking Sam's chairs because some are really nice, but if you buy 25 the same and you have people that are 4'11" and 6'5", they all don't fit in the chair. And so what happens is if somebody sits all day long in a chair that doesn't fit them, you'll know it because you'll see pillows behind their back. They'll have backaches. They'll walk funny. They'll be stiff. Trying to make something as ergonomic as possible may just be as easy as just put a couple of things up underneath your computer screen and raise it. Now, it sounds silly, but when you get the ergonomics right, you get the mental health right because they're not fighting their work environment. If you can afford to get raisable desks, great. Or have it where people can move around. Even just having a conference room where people are allowed to go in and sit at the conference room table and work for a little while without bothering somebody else. We do that here. We have a conference room that nobody uses a lot. And so people will say, hey, and they mark a time and there's 8 chairs in there and they'll go in. It's not social time, but they move around and they get their work done. And so you might even try that. Physical environment. This is a picture of the actual plant that I have sitting in my office that makes noise because we have some life coaching that goes on in this office, and it makes white noise. It also has birds chirping. But things like white noise, good acoustics make a big difference. So, there's an app, and you'll see it on TV. They talk about white noise and brown noise and things. And there's really studies out there that show that having those types of noises available relaxes the mind so that people can get more done. And when you do that, it also discourages people from doing this all day long. If you have an environment where it's quiet and people can't deal with quiet, they will fill it. They'll either all bring their radios and then start fighting over who's playing what music, or they'll just start yakking and talking. So having some type of noise in the background can be very mentally healthy and very mentally soothing. Anybody feel like this little guy? Lord have mercy. And this little guy and I take him on all my presentations. Yes, I feel a little bit stressed. Why do you ask? Yes, because stress is everywhere. And as an HR person, you need to remember that when you experience stress, others are experiencing stress and they're bringing it to you and dumping it at your door. And then a lot of times you'll pick it up and not even know it and dump it at somebody else's door. And it can be from anything. This time of year, everybody's dealing with, they just paid their taxes. Maybe they owed and they didn't know it. They got a lot of work going on. They got kids graduating. Maybe they have financial issues, working with and taking care of parents at that season of life, and even fun things. So have you ever seen somebody getting ready to go on vacation? Maybe you're the one that goes on vacation and you just want to hurry up and get everything done. You got all this stuff, or you gather all this stuff up that you're going to do while you're on vacation. It's not vacation. Don't tell anybody. And when they get ready for vacation, they start dreading coming back to whatever's going to be left on their desk while they're gone. Fun things can be stressful, but it's when your coping mechanisms do not match what is going on in your world. And trying to teach people that's really important because perception is reality. If you've ever heard any of my other presentations, you know this is a slide that is in every presentation, and here's why. What bothers you will not bother somebody else. When somebody comes to you and says, she took my favorite pen, and the person looking at you is irate because their favorite pen is gone and they are dead serious. And all you really want to do is go, don't laugh, don't laugh. Please don't laugh, because but they are having the same adrenaline dump and the same cortisol issues going on in their body right now as you, who has to figure out when it's that time of year for getting all the benefit packages and looking at the new stuff. They're experiencing the same stress. You don't have to understand what's causing it. You just have to know it is what it is. And it can cause a lot of problems in your world. And so when it comes to that type of stress, self-care is so important. So the two pictures on the left are pictures of my office. That is furniture that my daughter and I found at yard sales everywhere. The most expensive thing in the page is the paint. I didn't realize paint was so expensive. So just pay attention. We did our own painting. So if you ever come see me, don't look at the ceiling because the white tiles could possibly look like they have little green spots on them. But being a place where people practice self-care is important. Whether you have a little nook that people can sit in, whether you just have a very clean break room area, they know that they can come into my office. I have a little Keurig in my office. They can come make coffee or hot tea in my office anytime they want and go sit out there. And I know that if somebody does that, that is their cue that they don't really want to talk. They just need a moment. And I encourage you to find that spot in your office. Maybe it's a little tiny place. It doesn't have to be a big spot. It doesn't have to be even that. But it's important that people understand that self-care at work is really important, not only for you, but for them. So how do we teach that? Look at these pictures. So working in construction, one of the things that you'll find is there are bricklayers who are perfectionists, because one brick that is not level on the bottom, and all of a sudden, before you know it, it will become this big hump at the top, and you might not even be able to see it, and they are obsessive about it. So this picture on the left is basically showing you that anything tiny becomes this big thing the longer you deal with it. And self-care's job is to take the little things in your life and figure out how to even them out so that you don't have this problem. And it's not just a one-time thing. Self-care is every day. Sometimes it's many, many times a day, depending on what's happening in your world. But self-care keeps everything in line. And it's your job to take care of yourself, but to teach others the same thing. Because if you're not consistent with self-care at work and at home, it's not going to work. It's like working out. If I tell you I want to lose weight and I'm going to go walking and I go take a 1 hour walk and I come back and I say, I didn't lose any weight at all. I didn't get in shape. Well, I'm just going to give up. Well, it takes walking day after day after day. Random is not cumulative. You can't randomly try to take care of your mental health and expect it to be good. And most of the time, my professionals that I deal with, they're all into work. They've got to-do lists, they've got tasks, they've got project managers, they've got all these things. but they don't manage their mental health. And it's a daily thing. And when they don't, they can't understand why everything else is out of balance. It's got to be a part of your culture at work. And it doesn't have to be long, drawn out, big things. But adults learn best by doing. You can tell them all day long how to do things, but if you do it with them, they're more likely to do it. So, here's some self practices. Checking emails and making phone calls at specific times of the day, not all day. Have you ever had your email come up and you have it up on, like I can look over here on I don't have it up right now, but I used to have my email up on a second screen, and every single time an email would pop up, it would go boop. I got to where every time I heard the sound boop, I just wanted to take a hammer and smack my computer screen. So I had to not only turn it off, I had to stop. And one of the people I used to work with used to check emails in the morning when he first got there for 1 hour and 1 hour in the afternoon. And that was it. And everybody learned that if you needed a response, that's when it was going to come. And if it didn't happen in the morning, it would happen in the afternoon because it was done in the order received. That's how it works. Time blocking tasks. I'm going to focus on this right now, and I'm going to focus on this later. Multitasking is a myth, even though some of us think we're really good at it. But time blocking tasks and then protecting them. Now, you're always going to have the person walk in the door with some crisis. I get it. But if you can time block when things are normal, you're more likely to get some things done. Every hour, you need to be walking at least 250 steps. Okay, so go ahead and eye roll. Start over here. Go all the way across to the other side. It's like, I can't get up from my desk. I got things to do. Have you seen the piles on my desk? That's only about 2 minutes. If you have a desk that raises, stand up and walk in place for 2 minutes. I'd love for you to do it every 30, but I'll take every hour, because why we're doing it is this. Self-care, if you're wound up on your desk, doing stuff, working on it, when you physically get up, it makes your mind go, oh, we're going to do something different. And 2 minutes of physical activity, walking 250 steps, and if you're a counter, count out 125 one way and then count 125 back. Don't do anything else. It makes your body make oxytocin and dopamine, which will slow that stress response down. It's really important. And if people see you doing it and they say, what are you doing? Taking a little break, taking a self-care break, 250 steps worth. People go, oh. And you'll be amazed at the people who will do it too. Breathing. We're going to talk about breathing here in a minute. Everybody around you should have air right now. It's the tool that you should use the most. It's the tool that everybody should be using. And we're going to talk about breathing in a second. Eating lunch. Yes, eating lunch every day. Not at your desk. And not talking business unless you have a business lunch. I get it. We do a lot of business at business lunch, but when it's a normal day and you're not out doing business, do not talk about business at lunch. Enjoy that moment. I don't even care if it's 15 minutes. Physically get up from your desk, be mindful about what you eat somewhere else, and then come back to your desk. Because when you connect eating to your work, you are setting up a stress response of stress eating. And you may not have ever been a stress eater. I live for it. If I'm stressing, there's not a carb on the planet I won't eat. And I would eat at my desk, and that causes your brain to equate stress with eating. And that's not what we want. You got to break that cycle. Starting and leaving on time. So just like we'll start and finish on time today, I want you to start on time at home. I want you to start on time at work and leave on time. There is no trophy for the person who stays the latest. There's no trophy. And if there is a trophy for the person who stays the latest every day at your office, we need to talk. That is not healthy. And it's the hardest thing to do. And it's also the thing you must teach your employees. In my office, my staff, they know that at 5 o'clock, if we are not done, put it down and we're going home, because family is a very important part of what we want them to do. Work is a means to an end. And I want them to go home and enjoy their family. So let's take a deep breath for a minute. Yes, I'll be the one that looks silly because that's just what we do. But when you take a deep breath, when you're having a moment, and this is something I would encourage you to do all day long, when you breathe in through your nose and you hold it, and then you let out through your mouth, you're doing two things. When you hunch over your desk all day long, you look like this. I'm all hunched over, right? I'm sitting up straight right now because I want to appear like I'm not hunching over my desk talking to you. But when you're hunched over your desk, you're only using about the top part of your lungs. You're not getting full oxygen. You're not getting the best use out of your lungs. And so when you sit up straight and you breathe deep, hold it, and then out through your mouth, you know what you're telling your brain? Hey, let's think through these things. Let's get more productive. And if you do that 3 or 4 times in a row, sitting up straight and really breathing deep, you know what happens? A lot of times people get a little bit lightheaded. You know why? Because you haven't been deep breathing, you've been shallow breathing. And it's important that's what keeps your anxiety and stress levels down. Being mindful is being aware of what's going on around you, just paying attention to what's happening right now. So if we're in the room together, one of the things I tell people is when we're focused on each other, don't worry about what happened yesterday. Don't worry about all the projects you have in the future. Hang with me for just this moment. Just be present. So I did a mindfulness exercise with my own coffee. And these are the things you're looking for, the things that go with your 5 senses. And these are the things you can teach your employees and the people around you. How does it feel? Whatever you're doing. So for me, I could feel the hot cup of coffee in my hand. I love the way it smells. I love the way it tastes. I liked watching the creamer swirl around in there. That's my visual. I love seeing the steam rise, how the spoon sounds in my cup. I love the way it does. In that particular instance, I was at home and I was hearing my cat purr and I heard the clock ticking, which is something you don't normally hear when you're not being mindful. Why is mindfulness important? Because if you're in the middle of a big meeting and you're trying to deal with stuff, it helps people focus. So when you're having meetings, be mindful. Have people be fully present. Set the intention of the meeting. I can't tell you how many times I've been to a meeting that should have been an email, or people meet about a meeting that we're going to have about a meeting next week. They just meet to meet, and you're thinking, what are we here for? So be fully present. Set the intention of the meeting and active listening. That means that you look people in the eye. People have lost the art of looking each other in the eye. Put the phones and the computers down. Tippy typing like this during a meeting, even if you're taking notes, is the most distracting thing on the planet. You can take notes or just be mindful, because a good meeting at the end, they will summarize the key takeaways that are in that meeting, what action items were had, what conversations were had, and be on time. If this meeting is supposed to be 44 and a half minutes, at 44 minutes, we should be talking about the key takeaways and we should be done, period. If a meeting goes outside of what has been on there, the agenda was either too full or you have gone off track. And anytime you go past a meeting time, you lose people's interest. So why are we doing all this? It's our job to practice all of that because of work-life harmony. You have to understand that all of us, when I ask you, what do you do tell me about yourself. Most people will start with, well, I'm a mental health professional. I'm an HR professional. I'm an electrician. I work for the river. They define themselves by what they do at work. And I always ask people, well, tell me more about yourself. And they keep going with work. And I'll say, no. Tell me about your family, your friends. Tell me what you like to do. It's our job to push being practical, taking care of yourself, talking to people, and dealing with work-life harmony, because it's a big circle. If any one of these 4 areas is heavy, the other 3 will suffer. It's not a question of if. It is. It just is the way it is. So I don't want you running on an empty battery. And if you're trying to be like this all the time and not being authentic with yourself and taking care of yourself, you're going to have a depleted battery and you will not be effective at what you do. And for the love of Pete, I don't want you to be running on an empty coffee pot, because if that's the case, we have caffeine issues, right? But you don't run that way. And I don't want your employees and your teams to run that way. And I specifically don't want you to run that way. Lead by example. When you're doing small things at work like this, people start taking it home because they see it's important to you, and they're more likely to take it home to their children and to their families, and then you make a generational influence. So with that being said, we all like coffee differently. Some people in this room probably hate coffee and they're like, I'm a tea person. That's cool. You can do tea too. Everybody's a little different. And learn what combination of mental health works for you and your team. Everybody's different, and learning which ones work is really important. but practicing each of them is what's going to keep you running and keep your mental health in check. So it is 5 minutes until 10. What questions do you have? What's one thing you learned?
Jenny, I'm just gonna go ahead and confess, I'm the person who has piles on my desk and none at home, so I don't know what that says about me.
Well, being different, it means that you are, there's a whole psychology behind it. I'll be happy to send it to you. I'm the one that my desk at work, I'm the minimalist at work, but if you go home, there is a trail through my house. And I tell people, if you're a really good friend, you're welcome at my house anytime. But if you're coming to see my house, I'm booked solid for years.
I know at home I can't mentally handle that. Like I need it to be straightened and neat. Otherwise I feel anxious. It probably makes me feel the same at work. It just doesn't, it isn't as easy to keep up with.
Any questions or anything that I can answer for you all?
I feel seen.
Sorry, but I like you. But we like you so much. But I think it's important to know that you got to take care of you first. And when you do these things just for you, your folks will see it, and it's important because they will follow your lead. And lots of times I can teach way more to people by doing than by saying. Just respecting other people's time, respecting your time.
Great job.
Thank you,
Love
Jenny.
You're welcome. Thank
Love
you.
this. It was a great presentation. Loved it. Every minute of it. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
It has been that's been great information, and I just wanted to let our members know as we wrap up. If you are like, this is all really good, how in the next week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks do I do something for my employees just to help elevate their knowledge, especially since May is mental health awareness month. That's why we wanted to bring Jenny in here at the end of April. Just know that through our Four Rivers SHRM newsletter over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be pushing out some resources, both from Four Rivers SHRM, but also through Kentucky SHRM, because they have a lot of stuff that they've prepared that we're going to be making sure that you have access to. And then again, also with National SHRM. So we're going to be putting out some resources for you to help guide your employees, especially during the month of May, as the world sort of focuses on mental health. Jenny, you've given us great information. She has added her contact information. As you can see, she's such an engaging speaker, does a lot of great work in our region. So if you as a company or organization would like to reach out to her, we would love for you to do that. She's a great resource, and we're happy to have her with us today. I just have one additional announcement that I wanted to share. We do have a date for our June in-person event that I want to make sure everybody puts on there, save the date on their calendar. June 4th is going to be our day at Fort Campbell for Soldier for a Day. Our time period is going to be 10 to 2, so it's going to be in the middle of the day. We will be eating on base. More information is going to be coming out about that, but I wanted to make sure everybody got that date on their calendar. It's going to be a great day of understanding our veterans that are entering the workplace, connecting with the officials at Fort Campbell that are in charge of transitioning soldiers when they are leaving service and connecting them with employers. So a great opportunity to learn about how they do it, what programs are available, what assistance they have for their soldiers, and what assistance we can give as we are looking for staffing. So June 4th is that date. Any other comments or announcements before we head out? All right, then. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you in May. Thanks so much.
Thank you.